everyone, I am Chetna and welcome back to Journey to Enlightenment and Awareness. Recently, I heard Dhirendra Krishna Shastri ji asking a very thought-provoking question to the public.
आज का प्रश्न यही है, ईश्वर में तुम हो या तुम में ईश्वर है या तुम ही ईश्वर हो, ये निर्णय कर ले।
When I heard that question, I smiled because it touches the very heart of today's topic. So in this video, using both modern science and the wisdom of Vedas and Upanishads, let's understand this question step by step and discover what our ancient scriptures are actually trying to teach us. Before we begin today's topic, I want to quickly clarify one point from my previous video. When I said that most of the kings and kingdoms we studied in history belong to Kalyug period, and simultaneously I also mentioned that our NCERT textbooks briefly refer to the early Vedic period and later Vedic period, what I meant was that simply mentioning the names of Vedas or Upanishads is not the same as actually learning from them. Learning a few names or facts for an examination is completely different from understanding their wisdom and implementing it in our daily lives. That is exactly what I mean by an education gap. Today, we are not just going to mention the Vedas, we are also going to learn from them. Question 1. Why do so many people hear about spirituality but still never get the real answer? Have you ever noticed something? Nowadays, the internet is full of videos about hidden truths, spirituality, ancient mysteries, the Illuminati, and what's really happening in the world. And many of them feel like a game of catch and catch ball. They know you are naturally curious, so they catch your attention with a powerful hook. They keep that curiosity alive for a few seconds, and then the video ends. You leave feeling entertained, of course, but did your curiosity actually get its answer? Or did it simply make you wait for another video? I have observed this for a long period of time, and that's one of the biggest reasons I started this channel, because I believe curiosity is a God-given gift. Without curiosity, there would have been no discoveries, no inventions, no science, no progress in human civilization. That's why I believe your curiosity deserves real education, not just endless suspense. Your curiosity is precious, but so is your time. Every minute you spend watching something should leave you with real understanding, not just temporary excitement or digital overstimulation. But because they know the power of hook, they make you fall in their trap. But it's not actually benefiting you. Why? Because your curiosity is not getting its real answer. You are just roaming around in that loop again and again. So on this channel, if we ask a question, we won't leave until we genuinely understand the answer. Now that we have cleared that up, it's time to answer one of the most important questions in this entire series. Why are we called divine beings? Question 2. What does it actually mean when we say that human beings are divine? Before we answer this question, let's first clear up a very common misunderstanding. Many people hear the word divine, they immediately think of miracles or supernatural powers. But that isn't what the Vedas and Upanishads are primarily trying to teach. Being a divine being naturally comes with its own intuitive and spiritual potential. However, that is different from what people usually imagine as supernatural powers. The real meaning of being divine is much deeper. It's about understanding where we came from, what our true nature is, and why every living being is connected to the same source. So, where do we came from? To answer that, we first have to go back to the very beginning of the universe. Most of us have read about the Big Bang Theory in our NCERT textbooks. Modern science explains that before the universe existed, there was no Earth, no stars, no galaxy, no space, and even no time as we understand it today. Everything began from a single origin, and from that one beginning, the entire universe gradually expanded into everything we see around us today. And suddenly, my mind wandered. What was that phenomena that suddenly, from black nothingness, gave birth to planets, galaxy, the earth, human, and everything else? And if that's how the universe began, then how come people credit God for having created the world. To understand it properly, I turned to some of the world's oldest spiritual texts, the Vedas and the Upanishads. And what I discovered completely changed the way I understood both science and spirituality. Now, here's what interesting to remember is that Big Bang theory was proposed only in 1927 during the present Kali Yuga era, whereas the Rig Veda had already described this very stage of creation thousands of years earlier. Now let's explore the similarities between the Big Bang theory and the Vedic teaching on the creation of universe. The point 1, the beginning from nothingness. According to Big Bang theory, the universe began from an extremely dense initial state where there was no space, no time, and no matter as we know it today. Everything in the universe ultimately emerged from this single beginning. Now let's see the Rig Veda Shlok. This Shlok describes a state where there was neither existence nor non-existence, no sky, no earth, and no space, only an indescribable reality beyond human understanding. Now what they both tell us? Both point toward the same profound idea. Before creation, the universe existed in a mysterious, incomprehensible state from which everything eventually emerged, जिसको कोई लॉजिकली नहीं समझा सकता. खुद सोचो कैसे अचानक से इट एक्सप्लोडेड एंड फॉर्म all other things like planet, galaxy, plants, animal and human being. And why not it happened before it? And why only at that particular period of time it decided to spread? No one can explain who or what did that, and why all of the sudden it decided to form life and consciousness. So now let's move to the point 2. Point 2, a spark that started creation. According to modern science, the universe began from an extremely hot, dense state where all energy and matter were concentrated into a single point. This point expanded rapidly not as an explosion into the space but as the explosion of space itself, gradually cooling, forming particles, atoms, stars, and galaxies over time. The entire cosmos unfolded from this one origin. Now let's see the Chandyoga Upanishad. I am one and let me become many. What do they both tell us? In both perspectives, the creation began from one source. Science say the universe expanded from a single beginning, while the Upanishads speak of Brahma, the supreme reality, who is whole and complete, choosing to express itself in many different forms. So, one source, one impulse, unfolding into multiplicity. Point 3, the interconnectedness of everything. According to Big Bang theory, all matter in the universe came from single initial singularity, meaning everything is connected at its core. Or, since everything originated from the same beginning, every particle in the universe share the same origin, of course, right? Now let's move to Isha Upanishad. This verse says the entire universe is pervaded by the divine, or to say it simply, the entire universe is filled with God. What do they both tell us? Both science and the Veda point to the same conclusion. Everything in this universe comes from the same original source, whether it's a star, a tree, an animal, an insect, or a human being. We all come from the same source. And this one truth lays the foundation for understanding why are we called divine beings. Question 3. What does it mean that God is infinite and that we are all divine beings? Now, after everything we have explored so far, let's finally answer this question. The Vedas and Upanishads also beautifully explain the concept that every living being is a part of God itself through these verses. The first is Tvat Tvam Asi, which means that thou art. In simple words, the same divine essence that resides in the Creator also resides within you, within me, and within every living being. The second is Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, which means everything in this universe is Brahma. It explains that the Atma or the soul within you is not separate from Brahma, the universal consciousness. It describes that God fragmented parts of himself dividing his own divine energy or soul into countless beings, allowing each soul to experience life and learn. Notice something very carefully. The scripture don't say that only human beings are connected to God. They don't say that only saints are connected to God. They say everything in this universe is Brahma. This include human beings, animals, plant, insects and every form of life. The scripture then explains that the Atma, the soul within every living being, is not separate from Brahma, the universal consciousness. In other words, every soul is a part of the same infinite reality. Just as countless waves arise from one ocean without ever becoming separate from it, every living being arises from the same divine source. The forms may be different, but the essence is one. In simple words, as we all know, the Big Bang Theory was proposed in 1927 during the 20th century, while the Vedas and other ancient scripture have been present in the world since ancient times. As we can see, both expresses the same view on the creation of earth and the universe. The only difference is that the texts written much earlier are considered to be more authentic and genuine, while the Big Bang Theory was proposed much later from a scientific perspective. This reminded me of something very important. Just as gravity existed long before modern science explained it mathematically, ancient Indian scholars like Brahmagupta and Bhaskar too described gravitational ideas century before Albert Einstein developed his own theories about gravity and space-time. So, science did not create gravity, it helped us understand it through observation and mathematics. Hence, in this regard, I see the Big Bang Theory as nothing different from rediscovering the creation of the universe and life itself, but through a scientific lens. Let me explain what do I mean by rediscovering through an example. Imagine that today, in Kali Yuga, someone accidentally creates a strawberry jam by mixing different ingredients. Okay? At that moment, they won't stop to look through history to check whether someone had already made the same jam century ago or not. Like most of us, they would simply announce that they had discovered it because that's all they know at that particular point of time. But later, when someone looks into the history and discover that an old lady had already made the exact same strawberry jam during Satyuga, just a matter of fact that over time her recipes was never passed down properly. As generation changed, people gradually forgot it and eventually that knowledge was lost. So when someone made the same jam again in Kali Yuga, they will genuinely believe they had discovered something completely new. But in reality, it wasn't a new discovery, it was simply the rediscovery of something that had already existed but has been forgotten over time. In the same way, sometimes what feel like a completely new discovery may eventually be a knowledge that humanity once had but gradually forgot over the century and now is being rediscovered again. Now let's think about human history in the very same way. Today we see different countries, different religions, different languages, different cultures, different communities. If we keep going back far enough, if we keep going back far enough, we will eventually reach the very beginning of the human life. According to the Hindu scripture, the first human couple is described as Manu and Shatrupa. In the Bible, the first human couple is described as Adam and Eve. The names are different, but both traditions point toward the same central idea that humanity began from a single origin. If we all come from a single one origin, then before all these identities existed, we were already one human family. Okay? The identities we carry today came much later. Our common origin came first. Therefore, I find out that the very information about the God, the creation of the universe, and life was already available to us before science proposed it in another way under the heading of Big Bang Theory. The Veda already had the answer to my question. We are all fragmented parts of God itself. That is why people are called divine beings throughout various religions as well. In simple terms, both the Veda and the modern science point toward the same idea that everything comes from a single origin. The Vedic texts explain it from a spiritual and deeper perspective, while science, through the Big Bang Theory, explain it from a physical and observable perspective. Now let me explain it to you from one more angle. See, if there was absolutely nothing before the beginning of the universe, then where did consciousness come from? Because there is a very clear difference between a physical object and a living being. A rock cannot think, a table cannot make decision, a planet cannot feel emotions, but every living being can. We can think, we can learn, we can plan, we can love. We can feel happiness and the pain. In other words, we are not just made up of physical matter, we also possesses something more, the consciousness. Now this made me wonder, if the universe had begun with only physical matter, suppose if the universe had only begun with the physical matter, then shouldn't everything have remained only physical? Where did this ability to think, feel, understand, and become self aware suddenly came from? How did lifeless matter become conscious life? To me, this suggests that from the very beginning, the universe was not only physical but also carried consciousness. And if that first consciousness gave rise to every other conscious living being, then of course I understand that very first consciousness as God or the universal consciousness. That is why God is not just the creator of life. God is the original consciousness from which every other consciousness came into existence. And when we truly understand this, we realize that at our core, we are all divine beings, because that same original consciousness shared its own energy to create every one of us. The point is very simple. First of all, we understood that how we all came from one single origin. And second point is, if that single origin is consciousness, and that consciousness was then divided to give all of us our consciousness, then of course that one particular consciousness that gave us the consciousness is already and obvious gonna be called as God. Question 4. If we are all divine, then what is our relationship with God? Now we have reached one of the most important part of this entire discussion. If everything came from the same source, then what exactly is our relationship with the God? The answer is beautifully explained in the Vedas. The answer is, there is no duality, which means there is no real separation. It was God as consciousness who wished for the creation of the world, and as he was just energy, so he first manifested himself, and similarly he used this energy to create life and consciousness in all his living beings. We call this energy the soul or Atma. In the Sanatan wisdom, we also call the collection of all souls and consciousness equals to Paramatma to signify the God. But see, the word Atma is common for both human being as Atma and for God as Paramatma. Hence, the only difference is that we, all living beings on earth, are fragments of one single universe and consciousness. And Paramatma means the compilation of all individual soul. Therefore, we are all known as the soul or Atma, and the collective of all the soul or Atma is known as Paramatma or the God. Hence, we are not different from God. So there is no duality in our identity. Therefore, We all have a part of God itself in every living being, be it in animals, insects, plants, or human beings. And once we truly understand this, another beautiful truth naturally follows, that no one is superior and no one is inferior. The hierarchy that human beings have created among themselves and even between humans, animals, plants, and insects is not the way that describe the life. Often humans think that human come first, then come the animal, then come the plant, then come the insect. But in reality, because every living being carry the same divine essence, therefore every living being is equally worthy of love, kindness, compassion, dignity, and respect. This is also why almost every major spiritual tradition or religion teaches these values of love, kindness, forgiveness, and respect for all living beings. Because when we truly understand that every living being carries a part of God, hurting another person, hurting an animal, destroying nature without necessity, or acting with hatred is no longer just hurting someone else. It means we are hurting a part of the divine or God that exists within every living being. That is why the ancient Vedic wisdom beautifully says Vasudeva Kutumbakam, which means the whole world is one family. The full shlok is on the screen, which means this is mine and that is your. Such is the thinking of narrow minded people. But for those with noble hearts, the whole world is one family. So, when I understood this verse, everything finally made sense. If every living being carries the same divine essence, then how can we treat each other as strangers? How can we hate each other? How can we exploit each other? Or how can we disrespect another living being? Because when in reality we are all the expression of the same divine, we can't do anything thinking that they are just mere mortals, they are mere humans, or that mere animal or insect. Because that is completely opposite to the wisdom that Vedas say, that we all are part of that same divine God essence, or you could say we are the part of that same Brahma. So, that was the moment when all of the confusion in my life disappeared for forever. Because at that moment, I finally understood why enlightened beings, whether it was Buddha, Jesus, Guru Nanak, Lord Krishna, Lord Rama, or many others, came to teach humanity the same timeless principles of love, peace, kindness, forgiveness, compassion, and dharma. Because if every living being carries a part of God within, then their purpose was never simply to establish a new religion. Their purpose was to remind humanity of a truth that had always existed but had gradually been forgotten. As you could see in many of these religious books, the principle remained the same: love each other, spread kindness, be humble to each other. And naturally, another question came to my mind. If human beings and all other living beings carried the same divine presence within them, then why does God repeatedly take avatars and send enlightened beings to restore dharma? That is exactly what Lord Krishna explains beautifully in the Bhagavad Gita. यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत अभ्युत्थानमधर्मस्य तदात्मानं सृजाम्यहम्. Whenever righteousness declines and unrighteousness rises, O Bharata, I manifest myself to restore dharma. One thing that is very important to understand here is that Lord Krishna doesn't say he will appear only at the end of a particular age. He says whenever the balance of dharma declines, that means whenever the balance of the world is disturbed, the divine restores it. Sometimes indirectly or directly through an avatar, and sometimes through enlightened saints and great spiritual teachers. Which means some of the people think that goddess Kali is only gonna come at the end of Kali Yuga, but that's not the case. As we have seen, the Guru Nanak, the Lord Jesus, the Lord Buddha have came in the beginning of Kali Yuga period whenever the need felt. So that means whenever the balance of world is disturbed, the divine restores it. So to me, this verse carries a beautiful reminder that our purpose is not only to worship God, our purpose is also to express God's quality through our own thoughts, words, and actions. Because if we truly carry a part of divine within us, then living with love, kindness, compassion, forgiveness, and righteousness is not just a moral choice anymore. It is our true nature. And once I understood this, one final question naturally remained. If this truth has always existed, then why did humanity gradually forget it? Question 5. If this truth has always existed, then why did humanity gradually forget it? This became one of the most important questions I asked myself during my 7 years of study. If the Vedas, the Upanishads, and the many other scriptures have been teaching this wisdom for thousands of years, then why don't we see the world living by these peaceful principles today? The scripture explained that this truth didn't disappear overnight. It gradually became covered by Maya, the illusion. As human beings became more attracted to the material world, they slowly began to identify themselves only with their body, their possessions, their status, and their ego, forgetting their true identity. Our scriptures also explain that as the ages progress, dharma gradually declines and the influence of darkness becomes stronger. In Hindu philosophy, this influence is associated with the Kali, the force that promotes ignorance, division, greed, attachment, and ego. In other traditions, similar forces are described using different names such as Satan or the tempter. The names may be different, but the underlying lesson is remarkably similar. These forces do not become powerful because human beings are weak. They become powerful when we forget who we truly are. The moment we forget that every living being carries the same divine essence, hatred becomes easier, violence becomes easier, jealousy becomes easier, greed becomes easier, cruelty becomes easier, and slowly society begins to lose its moral foundations. When we look around the world today, we can clearly see these consequences. That is why I don't believe the real crisis facing humanity today is a lack of intelligence, but I believe that it is a lack of awareness. But when I looked at history, something else also became clear. The second reason in difficulty for preserving and spreading education was that after the beginning of Kali Yuga period, humanity passed through countless difficult periods. Kingdoms continuously rose and fell. They were repeated invasion, the Mughal period, the Swarajya movement, the struggle for independence, the world wars, and the partition, and also many other difficult chapters in human history. During this chaotic time, most people were simply trying to survive. Their greatest concern was protecting their lives, their families, and their communities. When people are living in survival mode, their first priority naturally becomes survival and not preserving and passing on these life changing wisdom for future generations. I truly honor those generations because they did what was best in the circumstances they were living in. So, looking back today, we can understand why preserving this wisdom became so difficult during those times by our ancestors. And also, later, when the modern education system introduced by Lord Macaulay became the foundation of education in India, much of the wisdom found in our Vedas, Upanishads, and in other scriptures still did not find its place in mainstream education. As a result, one of the very places, the school, where every child could have learned these life changing teaching, gradually stopped passing it. And this also explains why many of these teachings unfortunately stop reaching the next generation. So, our parents may never have been taught these ideas in depth, and similarly, many of our teachers also never get the opportunity to study them either. They simply passed on what they themselves had learned. And we cannot blame them for that because today our circumstances are different. For perhaps the first time in history, we have education, research, and modern technology that allows us to preserve, revive, and share this wisdom with millions of people around the world. I truly believe it is now our responsibility not only to preserve this lost wisdom but also to pass it on to our future generation. From this moment onward, you and I have both the awareness and the freedom to choose differently. Every single day, we can consciously choose love over hatred, peace over violence, compassion over cruelty, unity over division, because this is not just knowledge to remember, it is the wisdom to live. And when enough people begin living this way, real change does not begin in governments or in intuition, it begins in individual human hearts. Now we can also understand why so much of human history has been filled with wars, violence, cruelty, and inhumanity, even though God has always taught love, peace, compassion, and righteousness through enlightened beings and scriptures. So, from this moment onward, if any of you ever gonna find yourself experiencing hatred, jealousy, manipulation, or even thoughts of harming another living being through abuse, violence, murder, rape, exploitation, black magic, or by any other destructive action, take a moment, pause, and remember what we have learned today. These thoughts do not come from your true nature. They arise when we forget one simple truth that we are all divine beings carrying the same divine essence. The more we remember who we truly are, the more naturally love, compassion, peace, kindness, and righteousness begin to guide our thoughts and actions. Now that we have understood why we are called divine beings and why humanity gradually forgot this truth, one beautiful question still remains. If every child could have grew up learning this from the very beginning, how different would our world become? Question 6. What if every child grew up knowing this divine truth from birth? Before we end this video, I want you to imagine something with me. What if, from the very first day of our lives, we were taught that every human being, every animal, every plant, and every living being carries the same divine essence? Would we still grow up believing that hurting others make us powerful? Would we still have think that animals exist only for our convenience? Would we still see nature as something to exploit instead of something to protect? Or would we naturally grow up with more love, peace, kindness, responsibility, and compassion? The more I studied these questions over the last 7 years, and as blogger, the more I write about them and the struggle people face every day, the more I notice one common pattern. Whether it is the loneliness, depression, trauma, the wounded inner child, cheating in relationships, people pleasing tendencies, settling for less, toxic relationship, or many other emotional struggles. Millions of people are searching for answers every single day. And as we have seen, they read blog, they read books, they take courses, they use meditation apps, they watch videos like this. But have you noticed something? Most of us begin searching for these answers only after we have already suffered the consequences of not knowing them. Yes, we learn after heartbreak, after betrayal, after emotional pain, after trauma, after making mistakes that could have been prevented. In other words, we often learn the most important lessons about life only after life has already taught them to us in the hard way. And that made me ask myself one simple question. What if these principles had been taught to us from the very beginning? What if We had learned them as children instead of adults. How many broken relationships could have been prevented? How much of loneliness could have been avoided? How much trauma could have been healed before it was ever created? How many painful lessons would have never been needed to become lessons at all? How much pain could have been prevented if we had learned these lessons from the very beginning? Because maybe the greatest education isn't the one that help us recover after the suffering. Maybe it is the one that teach us how to prevent unnecessary suffering before it even begins. Now just look at the world around us today. Over the past few years, we have seen so many heartbreaking incidents. The recent cases like the Ketan Agarwal case, the Blue Drum case, and many others that have shocked the entire country. At the same time, we are also seeing more broken relationships, more betrayal, more manipulation, more trauma, more addiction, hookup culture becoming increasingly common, cheating in relationships becoming normal, parents being abandoned in old age homes or even left on the streets, and crime that often leave us wondering how another human being could do something so inhuman. Looking at all of this, I found myself asking one simple question. Are people really becoming worse? Or is there something important that we are no longer teaching? That question took me back to the everything I have spent the last 7 years studying. Not because I wanted to prove any religion right, but because I genuinely wanted to understand why these problems continue to grow despite the world becoming more educated than ever before. And slowly, one thing started becoming very clear to me. Many of these problems don't begin when we became adults, they begin much earlier. They begin when children grow up without learning the values, the self awareness, emotional understanding, and the wisdom that can help them become responsible human beings. Because when these lessons are not taught early in life, life eventually teaches them through pain. And that's when I realized something. Perhaps many of the lessons that we spend years learning after heartbreak, failure, trauma, or regret, or after any incident could have been taught to us much earlier during our childhood age. And maybe that is exactly why these teachings were considered such an important part of life from Satyuga till Dwapar Yuga, not simply as religious teachings, but as a way of helping people become better human beings before life forced them to learn those lessons the hard way, like we are seeing it today. And that naturally lead me to the next question. If these teachings have the power to shape better human being, then why are they no longer a part of the education system or the education most children receive today? Now, let me ask a very important question from every parent, every teacher, and every one of you watching this video. One simple question. If these moral values, these life changing principles, and this understanding of ourselves are not being taught properly in our present day education system, and if teachers, despite their best efforts, are already responsible for teaching thousands of students, then who is going to teach our children these lessons? Because if they are not being learned at home, they are also not being taught in school, then where will the next generation will learn them from? This is exactly why I believe there is an education gap, and this is why I believe our education system needs to evolve. Not because our current education is bad, it served the need of its time, but today the world is facing different challenges. Today, we don't only need people with knowledge, we also need people with character and moral values. Because knowledge without value can build technology, okay? Knowledge without value can build technology, but knowledge without wisdom cannot build a better civilization. Maybe the greatest education isn't the one that helps us recover after the suffering. Maybe it is the one that teaches us how to prevent unnecessary suffering before it even begins. If you haven't watched my video on the education gap yet, I highly recommend it watching it after this one, because in that video I explain this idea in much greater detail. Question 7. Naturally, the next question arises, what should we do after learning all this? Now that we have understood why we are called divine beings and why humanity gradually drifted away from this understanding, the real question is, what do we do from here? For me, the answer is simple. We will keep learning, we will keep questioning, we will keep improving, and we will bring back the wisdom that helps us become the better human being. And that is the vision behind this channel. My purpose isn't simply to teach spirituality, it's to help bridge the gap between science, spirituality, and education so that the ancient wisdom become practical, easy to understand, and useful in our everyday lives. Because education shouldn't only prepare us for a successful career, it should also prepare us for life. It should teach us how to understand ourselves and how to understand others. Also, how to build a more compassionate and peaceful world together. There's one final thought I would like to leave you with. Today, millions of people already believe in manifestation. They believe that their thoughts, intention, and consciousness can influence the life they create. And throughout this video, we have explored where that consciousness comes from. Just as God manifested creation by expressing his own consciousness into countless living beings, every one of us carry a part of that same divine consciousness. So whenever we practice manifestation, we are already using the divine essence power that naturally exists within us. Yes, we are already using the divine essence power that naturally exists within all of us. In other words, we are already experiencing one of the qualities of being a divine being. The only difference is that most of us were never taught that this ability comes from the divine consciousness present within us. So when you hear the words, we are all divine beings, there is really no reason to be surprised from today onwards. Why? Because the only reason it felt surprising was because until today, most of us never knew that the reason we were able to manifest is because we ourselves carry a part of that same divine consciousness. So, indirectly, we have been using the manifestation power all along. We just never knew that it became possible because we are all divine beings. Now, at least, according to everything that we have explored throughout this video, you know the reason behind it. Because every time we practice manifestation, we are already using the divine power that exists within us. It is simply a truth that many of us were never taught. And with that, we have finally reached the end of today's journey. In the next video, we will explore another fascinating question. If plants also come from the same divine source, then why were they created in the first place? What purpose do they serve in nature? What do modern science and ancient wisdom reveal about plant intelligence, healing, abundance, and the lesson they can teach us about living in harmony with nature? Until then, keep learning, keep asking honest questions because curiosity is a gift from God. And every genuine question deserves a genuine answer. But above all, keep choosing love because when we truly understand who we are, love is no longer just a virtue, it became our very nature. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video and would like to continue this journey with me, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our future discussions. I will see you in the next video. Thank you.